welcome, welcome. This is Dave Rogers with Meet the Author, and today we're in New Zealand to talk to Peter Leong from Singapore. Peter, how are you today?
Lovely. Thank you very much for giving me a bit of time.
Well, it's going to be a very insightful conversation today. I look forward to connecting with the land of the first light, noticing a little bit of light and picking up that you've been in the garden today. So it's quite a nice experience to connect with New Zealand, land of the first light, and Peter Leong. So Peter, tell us a little bit about you and why did you write the book that you wrote?
Well, I've been in New Zealand for almost 23 years. And one of the things that I basically enjoy is write and research. Whenever people ask me a difficult question, I tend to sit back and ponder. And I always like to find out go a little bit deeper into it, whether does it make sense or doesn't make sense. Actually, this is the third book that I've written. So I've written one academic book, two Christian books. And your question is, why did I write the book?
Yes.
Did you say that? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the background to it is because my wife came down or was diagnosed with a sickness, a neurological condition about 18 years ago. At that point of a diagnosis, it was quite normal. She was looking normal and all that, but it suddenly took a turn for the worse about 5-6 years later. And then by 2011, she was in a wheelchair. She had been in a wheelchair for 10 years. And then she passed away recently on the 13th of August.
Sorry to hear that.
That's all right. I wrote the book. It's a Christian book. I wrote it because when we were in Singapore about 2 years back, my mother-in-law, who's past 80 this year, so she was about 78 then, is a very fit woman. So she was going to the gym. She was doing weights. She was traveling around the world maybe 2-3 times a year. So I looked at her when we were there, which she was kind enough to offer a room for us to stay in, both my wife and I. And I told her, I said, Mom, you're really doing great. Yeah, you were so wonderful. You could travel around the world. You could go to the gym and all that. And then she started telling me, oh, yeah, this is really blessing from the Lord. God has given me such great blessing and has allowed me to do all this. If you're in the Lord, you feel really blessed in terms of this. Then I thought it was a bit tough. Look, my wife was in a wheelchair. So I asked her, I said, Mom, if you are blessed, then your daughter must be cursed. Must be less than blessed. So that put her kind of in a bit of a fix, because there's a church doctrine that believe that Christians are blessed and they don't really suffer. They are always on top of the world and all that. And yet we had situations like this. So it caused me it caused me to actually go and do research and just go and find out for myself. What exactly is the word blessed in the Christian context? And the more I dug deeper, the more I realized that there are many biblical characters in the New Testament, in fact, that reflect a state of less than blessed. 11 of Jesus' 12 disciples actually were martyred, died for the cause. 11 out of 12, how can they be blessed? Peter was hung upside down on the cross. And then there was John the Baptist. He was even worse. They chopped his head off and put it on a platter. And how can we call him blessed as well? Look, it's a situation like this. So I struggled with the word blessed to discover it in the Bible. Actually, the word blessed in Greek is a Greek word called makario, M-A-K-A-R-I-O-S. And it really means that you are God's favored one. in God's sight. So blessing is more than what we hear in the churches, because many churches actually teach that if you're Christian blessed, you're walking in a sweet by and by. And Hollywood portray there, some of these churches portray it and say this is it. And I told myself, there are many places in the world where there are Christians, and I tell you, they are suffering like hell. Just think of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, even in the US. I don't know whether is it coming to the US. Even Canada now, you're struggling in terms of all these issues. So we've got to understand that context, you see, and me being me, I just love to do research. And the more I dwell into it, then I decided, why not turn it into a book and really title it Life Sucks? Because let's be honest, life sucks for many, many people, for all kinds of people. Only Hollywood sometimes portray that life is a happy place, and Disneyland portrayed as a Disneyland. But let's cut to the chase. The fact is, life sucks.
So
But
hold up your
there's
book.
hope.
Hold up your book for me. And yep, perfect. Okay, so life sucks. Please share with me again, and thank you so much for opening up and sharing the genesis of the book for you. And what is a key theme or one main takeaway from the book to that you in your research really came away from? And the title actually captures definitely one perspective. If I was to ask you to go a deeper level, what would be one key theme of the book?
Like I described to you, I mean, one key theme is really understanding what is blessedness in terms of the context of it. That Christians, even though we are suffering, we are already blessed because we're God's favored ones. And we've got to look at the context of life in eternity instead of just looking at it in our present life, because I can tell you our present life sucks. That's just a fact of life. Okay. If you ask me what's one key theme, particularly in New Zealand at this point in time, probably I don't really know whether Canada suffered or going through or went through this. But one of the things that I actually wanted to talk about was euthanasia. So I have a whole chapter on euthanasia that address these issues, because churches struggle. And I understand about euthanasia, because at the end of the day, is euthanasia, does it mean that somebody who take his own life will end up in hell, like a lot of people believe? What happened if, because euthanasia at the end of the day is about a personal decision to take his or her own life. So I had to research on that and find out for that myself. And became a bit more personal because my wife, about 2 years ago, was confronted with this issue. Actually, not 2 years, last year was confronted with this issue when a young doctor of probably 25, 28 years old went beyond her pay grade and actually suggested to my wife that she wasn't a good candidate for resuscitation. Last year she had cancer, actually, on top of the fact that she had this debilitating disease. So when we were talking about the cancer and the operation and all that, she actually voiced out and suggested to my wife that you're not a good candidate for resuscitation. And that put my wife in a big predicament, and it was a tearful kind of situation. So the thought of euthanasia went through her mind. So this year, when we were going through quite a bit of a struggle, sometime in May, she suggested that to my GP, general practitioner, personal doctor, basically, and brought up the issue of euthanasia. And my general practitioner, whom I suspect is not a Christian, engaged with her in a philosophical discussion in terms of whether euthanasia was good for her. In fact, actually suggested maybe it was good for her. And I had to go and struggle through it internally myself because, and because euthanasia has become legalized since, I think, the 8th of November this year, just last week, became legal in New Zealand to be euthanized. So it's a very current topic, and I wanted to address that. And actually, in fact, I told my pastor, there will be Christian members asking for euthanasia. You've got to be prepared for it. So how are you going to provide the answer? So that was
Peter,
the other theme that I felt very strongly about, that I wanted to bring across in the book.
I want to thank you for your bravery and being a voice of conversation, dialogue, and respect. These are very challenging topics, and I've actually been involved in it for the last 6 months with a number of cases also. And thank you so much for doing the research and bringing it up and doing it in a way that I'm really feeling your compassion, your respect in bringing these topics to the forefront, and people who might have to have the conversation of right to live, right to die, dignity in death, dignity in life. And these are incredibly challenging topics. And I'm so glad that you've put your thoughts down on paper. The book, Life Sucks, is available online through your website. In what ways might people get a copy of your book?
Just go to amazon.com, type in Life Sucks and type my name in, Peter Leong, Leong, and you'll be able to find my book there.
Fantastic.
And in fact, I'll tell you one thing. If you really want to read my book and you don't really want to pay for it, email me on our 2 jobs, OUR2, jobs with the S, .nz@gmail.com, and I'll send you a PDF copy, because to me, it's not about making money.
So folks,
it's about actually sharing and encouraging someone and actually helping someone. That's the whole objective of writing.
Thank you,
so
Peter.
if you find that, hey, you have a problem in terms of going to Amazon, paying for it and all that, pop me an email.
I'll put down all of your details in the comments, so people, friends who are listening to us today, please, I'll put Peter's bio, his ways to reach him, ways to connect with him. Peter, again, as a tip or a guide to people who are thinking about writing their first book or aspiring authors, can you give us 1 or 2 tips that, again, your robust way of researching and very thoughtfully putting things together? What would be a tip that you would give to an aspiring author?
I think if you really want to write, it has to come from the heart. If you write it from the heart, I think people will understand it. But having said that, even if you write it from the heart, sometimes it's worthwhile to get someone to check on your tone, because when I first wrote this book, Life Sucks, I can tell you that it was pretty heavy going. I had to get a friend to edit it for me and strip and make sure that it's tidy and good. I think the other thing that I can think of is that if you're writing a book, and if you want to publish it, make sure that you have got a nice book cover, because a nice book cover helps to sell the book. So I've always been told that, but people don't seem to pay attention. So I think my book cover is not too bad. So
no, I think
it's
a great
professional to actually design it. So they were quite kind to donate the design to me, because they knew my wife and knew me as well. So
it's very provocative. It's very people will pick it up and take a look at it. And again, I like to lighten this up a little bit. And if through this conversation we were able to get this book into somebody's hands, is there somebody particularly in the world that you would like to get a copy of this, that they would read it and they might make a difference in their life? Is there a specific person that you would like to send out that energy?
Life Sucks. That's a very good question. Yeah, I mean, I've actually not given it much thought, in terms of who I would put it across to, any politicians or actors or actresses. But I can tell you quite honestly, anyone will be able to associate with that. I think, I mean, people who have gone through even a tough divorce situation, and coming out from that and having many questions in regard to that, or people who are in Afghanistan and all that don't understand the American gospel. I call it American Christianity because I differentiate it from normal Christianity. American Christianity is not normal Christianity, okay? So let's be very aware of that. So that's how I look at it. But I don't know. I don't have a particular person. I think it appeals to everyone and anyone, because most of us will know somebody who has had somebody who passed away and affect him or her life. Or most of us may even journey through all these situations where we have our own problems and can't answer them. So no one in particular, everyone in total. That's how I look at it.
Well, I'm going to throw a name out there just because it's somebody I met when I went to New Zealand, and his name is Bruce Lipton. And he wrote the book, The Biology of Words. And it's a very insightful, well-researched book.
Biology of Words.
Yes, by Dr. Bruce Lipton. And I'm just going to put that out there because when I met Bruce in New Zealand, I had an amazing experience with him and his ability to articulate. And it might be one of those guys that you never know, you might do some type of collaboration with, and that might allow your message to be reaching additional people. And that's one of the things. I think you've gone through the hard yards, the lessons, and now some of your words, some of your ideas, some of your perspectives can really be of service. So Peter, thank you so very much for this opportunity to allow more people to hear about you, your book, your wife, your journey about life and life sucking. If I was to also lighten it up a little bit, what's been your favorite book that you've read in the last year?
What's the favorite book that I read in the last year? I'm actually a very boring guy. I don't read much of fiction. I read a lot of non-fiction. I can't even remember what's the title of a book, but I read something from, I think, Suzanne Zuboff, I think, and she wrote a book about what's happening in the world in terms of Facebook and all this, Amazon and all that, trying to suck information out from us. And I think it's called surveillance capitalism, I think. I thought, my goodness, that was excellent, written very well. And it got my whole brain thinking. So any book that gets my brain thinking, man, I tell you, I love it. It changed my lifestyle to some degree. And it's not conspiracy theory. It is because she's actually a Harvard academic, and she's, I think, in the early 70s. So she doesn't talk rubbish. She talk substance. So those are the kind of things that I actually enjoy. So I'm sorry, Dave. I am a very boring guy. I read hard stuff.
Well, our dear friend Charles introduced us. There is a reason why we are connecting here today. And quite often we don't know why at the very beginning. It's often the way that the mystery unfolds. So thank you very, very much for your time, for your sharing, and for your compassion in putting together your book and the messages that may make a big difference in people's lives. And with that, is there one last word that you'd like to share with our audience today? And I am inviting our friends to share this. If you know a friend who might be going through some challenging times, ask a question, subscribe to our channel, and reach out to Peter if you're interested in getting a copy of the book. Is there any last words that you'd like to share?
Last words. No, I think, throughout the book, I wanted to share that. I mean, if there's any last word that I say, I would say love your wife or love your husband. I mean, and if there's anything that I wanted to share that if you are married, marriage is for life. Marriage is a covenant relationship. If you are Christian, and if you're not aware, if you're struggling through, work through it, because at the end of the day, it is worthwhile. That's how I look through it. So those are my last words. That I just hope that people appreciate their spouses a lot better than maybe before they actually read the book and come to the conclusion that, hey, that's the other theme that I want to talk about.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Peter.
you, Dave. Thank you
Appreciate
so
your
much
time.
for your time.